The silly family drama started when my brother-in-law's wife picked a fight with me. Before that, everything was peaceful, and I got along well with my in-laws. I'm Emma, a 35-year-old housewife, married for 3 years. My husband, Daniel, is a year older than me and runs his father's successful local business. I don't get involved in the company because I'm studying law for my future. I have a good relationship with my in-laws. After getting married, I moved in with them. My father-in-law is mostly retired and enjoys spending time with friends, while my mother-in-law works in the company's accounting department. They appreciate that I take care of the housework. Daniel has an older sister, Olivia, who works at the company with her husband, and a younger brother, Lucas, who moved out and works at a friend's company. Since I rarely interacted with them, we had no problems. Things changed when Lucas married a 27-year-old woman named Sophie. She was already pregnant at the time and gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, 2 months later. Unlike them, Daniel and I don't have children. Only my in-laws, Daniel's sister, and my husband know why, but the issue is with Daniel. However, Sophie, who doesn't know this, started acting as if her family was more worthy of inheriting the business. At first, she asked me, "You're over 30 and still don't have kids, why?" I was tired of people asking, "No kids yet?" or saying, as the eldest son's wife, "It's your job to have an heir." I knew what I was getting into when I married Daniel, so I just smiled and said, "That's something only God decides." Then she bluntly said, "Doesn't that mean you're not a proper woman or wife? Unlike you, I had both a son and a daughter. Don't you think our family should inherit the business instead?" She even pressured my husband. "Lucas thinks it's unfair that Daniel gets to run the company. Can't you ask him to step down and let my husband take over?" I replied, "That's not my decision. If you want Lucas to be in charge, you should talk to my father-in-law. Daniel may run things now, but his father is still the owner." I thought that would end the conversation, but Sophie shot back, "That's why I'm asking you." Apparently, Lucas had a bad reputation when he was younger, and their parents didn't trust him enough to make him the successor. Sophie insisted, "Even if Daniel runs the business, there's no next generation. It would be smarter to have Lucas take over now." I was getting annoyed and told her firmly what I thought. She didn't like that and snapped, "Fine, just wait and see." That weekend, Sophie and Lucas suddenly showed up with their twins. Since they hadn't visited much before, the grandparents were thrilled. "How adorable. Do they look like me? Look at their eyes." Though, to be honest, they didn't really resemble their grandfather. Lucas, grinning, buttered them up. "Right? They'll grow up to be just like Grandpa. Your genes are amazing." Sophie chimed in sweetly, "Look, babies, this is Grandpa and Grandma. They love you so much." Ah, now I saw their plan. Instead of fixing Lucas's bad reputation, they were trying to use the grandkids to win favor, but I was sure their efforts would fail. Sophie turned to me and smirked. "I admire you so much. I want to raise my kids to be as respectable as you. Can I bring them here often to learn from you?" she asked my father-in-law. It seemed ridiculous, babies wouldn't understand any of this, but to my surprise, my father-in-law was happy and agreed. Feeling encouraged, Lucas added, "Dad, having twins has been expensive. My job doesn't pay well. Could you help us out a little, for your adorable grandkids?" Smitten with the twins, the grandfather agreed to give them $1,000 a month. My mother-in-law and Daniel watched with complicated expressions. Later, she told me that she and Olivia had to apologize many times for Lucas's past mistakes. Unlike him, Olivia is hardworking and responsible. She had strongly opposed Lucas marrying Sophie, and now my mother-in-law regretted not listening to her. "I can't imagine those two raising their kids properly. I'm worried they'll just dump the twins on us," she admitted. I completely agreed. "Emma, you can't stay relaxed. If they start bringing the twins over on weekdays, you'll be the one looking after them," she warned. She was right. I had never taken care of babies before, so I had no idea how to raise them. But surely, Sophie wouldn't just leave them with me, right? A few days later, Sophie smirked and said, "Since you probably can't have kids, I'll let you participate." That afternoon, she arrived with her 6-month-old twins and tried to leave without them. "Hey, that's completely irresponsible. What if something happens to them?" I shouted, furious. Sophie cheerfully replied, "If anything happens, I'll just blame you. Poor mother-in-law, stuck with a daughter-in-law like you." That was it. I lost my temper. "You're using your own kids for your and Lucas's schemes? Enough is enough," I snapped. What scheme? It's just sad that your in-laws have an infertile woman like you as the eldest son's wife. That means the company will have no future, she said with a smirk. Why do you assume that? I asked. What do you mean? If Daniel has no children, there won't be a next generation to run the business, she explained. Someone else will take over, I replied. I won't let that happen, Sophie declared. Then, without another word, she walked out, leaving her babies behind. What was I supposed to do? My mother-in-law was swamped with year-end accounting. Should I call Daniel? But he had no experience with babies either, and he already felt guilty that we couldn't have kids. Was this really something I should bring up with him? While I was thinking, the twins started crying. My father-in-law tried to calm them, but he wasn't having much luck. That's when it hit me, Olivia. She had experience raising children. I quickly called her, and she came over right away. That night, at 10 p.m., a drunk Sophie returned home, only to be greeted by me, Daniel, my in-laws, and Lucas. Olivia was in another room making sure the twins didn't wake up. What's going on? Why is everyone here? Sophie asked, startled. My mother-in-law looked at her and asked, why did you leave your children for 7 hours? Oh, that? Emma insisted on taking care of them and kicked me out. So awful, right? Sophie lied smoothly. Daniel wasn't having it. I heard everything you said to Emma this afternoon. You really talked down to my wife. He had actually been suspicious of Sophie's behavior for a while, so after her last visit, he installed a small listening device in the living room. Sophie's face froze for a moment, but then she smirked. Well, isn't it the truth? The eldest son's wife can't even have kids. Enough, my mother-in-law suddenly raised her voice. We have already accepted that Daniel and Emma won't have children. That is none of your business. Before we got married, I had a medical checkup to see if we could have kids. That's when we found out Daniel had a congenital condition that made it impossible. My mother-in-law had cried, apologizing for passing it down to him. She had kept it a secret and protected me from Sophie's cruel words all this time. I was truly grateful for her kindness. After scolding Sophie, my mother-in-law sighed, but Sophie still didn't understand the situation. She turned to my father-in-law and pleaded, but we have children. The company needs a successor, right? My father-in-law calmly replied, we haven't decided that yet. Whoever becomes the next president will choose. Picking a successor just because they have kids is ridiculous. Sophie and Lucas's faces fell. So, does that mean Daniel is the next president? Lucas stammered. No, my father-in-law said. We actually decided Olivia would take over, long before Daniel even got married. Lucas and Sophie looked like they had been hit by a truck. But Olivia is a woman, Lucas protested. My father-in-law didn't budge. She has always been outstanding in school and well-respected. And unlike you, she's been fixing your mistakes for years. That's why she's the best choice. Sophie turned to me in frustration. You knew about this, didn't you? Why didn't you tell me? I did. I told you someone else would take over. I said simply, I'm not involved in the company, so I couldn't say more than that. Daniel then spoke up. By the way, the $1,000 you've been getting, that was from my personal savings. We never took money from the company. I wanted Dad to enjoy his pension and salary, and I do love my niece and nephew, but after talking with Dad and Olivia, we're stopping the payments. Sophie and Lucas went pale. What? But we're spending so much on childcare, Lucas complained. Daniel didn't care. What are you talking about? Olivia and I felt bad for you and even considered hiring you at the company, but after hiring a private investigator, we found out you too often leave the twins with your parents and go clubbing. Lucas and Sophie collapsed in shock. They tried to beg my in-laws for help, but my father-in-law shut them down. We're leaving the company to Olivia and her husband, and the house to Daniel and Emma. You two need to stop relying on us. Sophie started crying, causing another unnecessary family scene. Later, we heard Lucas and Sophie were considering divorce. Neither wanted to pay child support, and Lucas was even saying, they're not my kids, they don't look like me. Meanwhile, Sophie left the twins with her parents and refused to let Lucas see them. She also refused a DNA test. No matter what the truth was, the twins would never inherit the company. It was a bit sad, though. The only innocent ones in this mess were the babies. As for us, Daniel is set to become president of a subsidiary where Olivia and her husband have been working for years. I won't be helping at my mother-in-law's company, but I'm studying labor law to be useful in the new role. I'm also scheduled to be appointed as the executive vice president, and I'm determined to make the workplace better for our employees.